I'd like to begin by talking about the kind of the history of the cell and gene therapy space. We had Provenge and we had Glybera, but recently, with the approvals of Kymriah and Yescarta, Luxturna, and just last week, Novartis's Zolgensma, we've really kind of entered a new era as far as cell and gene therapies are. Has it finally come of age, the space?
I think we all know that there has been a lot of activities the past years with regards to trying to figure out, can cells be used as a treatment and can one fix the genes? And I think what has been shown then with these approvals is actually the science works, and I think that is so reassuring, and I think that you can also see that is reassuring from the financial point of view, the funding increasing quite heftily, the clinical pipeline even so. So I think we have come to a tipping point when we have shown that science works, but we need to do it industrialized now in order to make it really work for the big scale.
So, I mean, is that really where the major challenge still lies, that moving it away from the labs or the early clinical phase and bringing it to commercialization?
Yeah, I think if one look at the most recent approvals, I think by industry standards, these products were taken to market very, very quickly. And I think the focus was to get them to market, which is a good thing in itself. However, what was not really taken care of at that time was the manufacturing aspects. So I think that is what matters now. Now we need to make sure that we can industrialize and standardize, and in order to really get it to the masses and get it to all patients in deep need of it.
Is that always the case with new modalities and new therapies, where there's that kind of rush to get it to market first, and then the details, so to speak, are looked at a later time?
I don't know whether it's typical, maybe, but I think one can conclude that it was done in that fashion for this time. I wouldn't say that it's typical. Maybe the audience knows more about that. But I think what we see though is that we got them out quite quickly. But on the flip side, we have things to work on now. We need to work on the engineering side, the manufacturing aspects, the supply chain, because what we saw was that it's very manual processes, not automated by any way. Some of it starts to get automated, kind of outdated also from the analytics point of view, and a supply chain that is immature, obviously, since we haven't done this before.
So really we're looking at automation, the supply chain logistics, and we're really trying to fix these issues to advance. What is is this the same case with both autologous and allogeneic therapies, or are companies like yourselves and others addressing these two areas as different as far as manufacturing goes?
I think the manufacturing, what we see from our end, is different. Yes, I think the most focus currently are from our end, and I think many in the industry as well, on the autologous side, and that's where the very complex situations are as well, because that's where we have the supply chain that is really needs to be vein to vein with the same patient. So I think by nature, so to say, it is more complex, and hence it requires some other solutions, and it requires a sort of a vein to vein, A to Z solution altogether.
GE Healthcare obviously is one of the major vendors in the BioProcess space, but when did GE really start jumping on the cell and gene therapy curve?
I don't know whether when we started to jump on I think we actually been into the cell business for quite some time. We actually have a centrifugation media which has been around for 40 years. So, but to answer your question, when did we really put the big efforts? And I think that was a couple of years back, and I think that is when the entire environment saw that, again, there is a possibility that this will work. And what I think that we can contribute from our end is to put industrialization into this, to help standardize, to help make sure that we can increase the volumes in order to meet more patients' needs. So I think that's where we see that we can learn from all the experience we have from the biologics space. which also have had that type of development, going from a manual thing into a more automated setup, a more standardized setup. So I think it was at that point when we saw that we are at a tipping point, the science works, and we feel that we can work as an integrator, helping to standardize, helping to make sure that we can actually do it as automatically as possible.
And you mentioned there you've had centrifugal technology for decades almost, and obviously you're leveraging a lot of your technology from the BioProcess space. But you've also, I believe, increased your presence in the cell and gene therapy through or both mergers, acquisitions, and partnerships. One thing you've recently launched is the Chronicle Offering. Could you talk us through what the Chronicle Offering is and how it sort of addresses some of the issues that you've raised?
Yeah, I think what we did was that we looked at the workflow, and now I talk about the autologous CAR-T workflow. So looking at where are there gaps in our workflow? And we had the opportunity then and could actually make the investment to fill the workflow, to get it from an A to Z for the products. The next one that we looked into, and again, this is back to our experience from the biologics field. We need to be able to automate this. We need to be able to do it in a more smooth manner. So, and with that in mind, and also our knowledge from the biologics in mind, we started to look at we need to have an automation platform that fits the purpose. Not as sophisticated as the big volume biologics, but that meet their needs, and hence we then develop the Chronicle, which is a type of an MES system, you could say. So it makes it possible to connect all the unit operations. It makes it possible to actually track what you have been working with and so forth. So that's the Chronicle. So it's an automation platform for the cell and gene therapy space.
And that was really born out of the acquisition of Asymptote in 2017?
Correct, you have read your numbers.
I think I actually wrote about it at the time, but it's been a couple of years since that acquisition to the spurning of the Chronicle Offering. Does that just demonstrate the movement of the industry to look for these solutions?
I think what it illustrates is that the learnings we have all had in the biologics, the monoclonal story once upon a time, is that we are trying to do this very much faster. We are trying to accelerate it quicker than we did. Also remembering that we have learned a lot during these years. I think some of us who was around in the BioProcess space when we started to talk about automation, and it was a number of years ago now, but that took quite some time, at least as we as a company really got all the things right. And I think hopefully what we can do now is to somewhat accelerate it and somewhat get it faster onto the market and somewhat get it to the number of doses needed for the patients.
So in a way, the Chronicle Offering helps solve some of the automation issues within the autologous space. What technologies are still needed there to really make autologous cell therapies more efficient and, I guess, cheaper at the end of the day?
I think what is really needed is full digitalization to really make use of digital in its broader sense. Not only the automation, but also all the analytics. How can you improve the processes even further? So I think that is really the biggest one, that we can achieve this true vein-to-vein workflow. And I think that is what will make the difference. We need to come to a standardized setup, and we need to get to closed and automated system. And that will take us to the platform that is needed in order to get it to the bigger volumes patients, and also by that get it to down the cost and down the risk.
From a sort of rough perspective, is there a sort of timeline when automation could really make the big difference within this space?
I think we see continuous development of this. So I have a hard time to say a date, even if I would love to say a date, but I can't do that. But I think we see each day that things are developing with with the entire community. And I think you see here also with the sort of the topics of the talks and also the focus of many companies and many institutions. A lot is happening every day.
Catarina, you mentioned earlier another major issue in bringing cell and gene therapies to market, the logistics issue. I noted last week that GE has announced a partnership with World Courier. Could you talk a little bit about what that partnership, I guess, brings to GE itself and then brings to your customers directly?
Yeah, we have been looking, as I mentioned before, really to the workflow, how we can go from vein to vein, how we can go from A to Z. And first is to look at the unit operations, obviously, to make sure that the workflow is intact. I also spoke about sort of the digital layer. How can you automate the workflow so it actually works and you keep track of everything? But the final piece is obviously the somewhat intricate situation, since you have a patient which is very far from the manufacturing site, and on top of that the products are live cells that you need to transport, so it makes it extremely vulnerable. So it's really in our mission to look at how can we make sure that the cells from a patient gets a way to be sort of fixed and then back to the patient as safely as possible. And so the agreement with the World Courier is one step in that direction, to be able to, for us to offer a true vein-to-vein setup and a true vein-to-vein workflow.
And are there any sort of details you can divulge of the World Courier deal? Why World Courier rather than some of the other logistics providers out there?
We felt they were fitting us the best, simply.
I think you may have answered this question inadvertently, but obviously GE is not the only bioprocess vendor out there trying to offer cell and gene therapy, or trying to feed the demand for the cell and gene therapy space. What really sets you apart from some of your rivals?
I think we have a lot of good competition out there, and I think good competition is good also for actually driving innovation and driving things being better. What I think we can do, not saying that not anybody else can do it, but what we can do is, again, we are leveraging the 30 or 25, 30 years experience in the biologics field. We are leveraging the knowledge that we have built into or gained by building the standardized setups and the standardized approach. So I think that is something that will come very handy. We have also seen that there is a lot of interest of our sort of full solution, the total solution that we call our enterprise offerings, the Flex Factories and the QBios. That has its quite nice fit into this environment as well. So I think, again, what we can do and what we can do very well as well is, again, to leverage what we have learned over the years in the biologics. And I think that is actually setting us in a very good spot when it comes to delivering this to patients and delivering the treatment to patients.
And I guess my final question is, this we're talking about rivals within the industry, but at some point there's got to be some sort of collaborations. Are vendors such as yourself working together in any sense to help resolve some of the issues that still plague the cell and gene therapy space?
I think in this space, just as in the biologic space or in any traditional pharma space, I think the different competitors are in a way working together, but I also think that the way that you are operating is actually driving a good outcome from all of the companies, driving innovation at the companies and driving better results. So and how much you work together, I think that's a matter of taste.
So really the competitive edge is driving the innovation here and helping bring cell and gene therapies to the forefront.
Yeah, I think that you see in all industries where you have a lot of good competition, you drive innovation, you drive the results, and in our case, you drive the outcomes for the patients.
Well, Catarina, I'd like to thank you so much for joining me on stage today, and look forward to more collaborations, more acquisitions, more technology innovations from GE.
Thank you very much. Thank you.